These are real people with real families you're hurting with your ridiculous rhetoric and inflammatory comments.
Let me get this straight. So ICE is having their fifis hurt that we are not saying nice things about them when they come into our communities and snatch up our neighbors. When they sweep in and attempt to institute a reign of terror, we are not being nice enough to them. You want us to remember that they're human beings and that they have families. I saw a political cartoon the other day that had some ICE chuddy, with his balaclava on or whatever. And it said, I cover up my face because I don't want my wife and children to know that I snatch other people's wives and children. I just made a video on how the Cato Institute has reported that 93% of the folks that ICE has rounded up have no violent criminal convictions whatsoever. Even though the Trump regime has tried to tell us that they are only going for gang members, violent criminals, Trump has said over and over again, they're violent people. I'm just protecting you from violent criminals who are gonna, rape you and break into your house and murder you. So you need to let me do this. You need to let ICE sweep into your communities, and they don't have to follow the law. They don't have to identify themselves. They can do whatever they want in their unmarked vehicles with no license plates. You need to let me do that because I'm protecting you from these violent immigrants who are all criminals. Well, the data shows that they're not. They're decent, hardworking people. They are women. They are children. ICE is now snatching kids out of foster care in Florida. They're regular folks who work and pay their taxes and have families and want to live peacefully in our communities. These are our friends. These are our neighbors. These are people we go to church with. These are people that we hire. It's important to remember that Donald Trump's personal ghoul, Stephen Miller, at the end of May, made a public declaration that ICE needs to stop going for criminals. He said, I want you to focus on non-criminals. Go to the Home Depot, go to the 7-Eleven, and look for non-criminals. They are specifically targeting regular people who have no criminal history, are no threat. They're raiding farms. They're looking on job sites to round up people who are in the middle of working their job, who have families at home. They're pulling over women who have their children in the car. They're snatching the mothers out and leaving the kids in the car because they don't want the children if they're American citizens. Well, sometimes they do. They're kicking some American citizen children out of this country. Just little kids, but they're leaving teenagers and shit here, just taking their moms. And yet you want us to prioritize the feelings of ICE agents and not to say things that might be mean or might make fun of them, or might point out the truth of who they are and what they're doing. You want us to not do any of that because they have families. Meanwhile, they're doing things like this. Y'all are snatching people from their jobs. Their kids come home from school and find that mom and dad are gone. You're taking decent, hardworking folks. You're snatching people that show up to their asylum hearings, people who are in this country because they have been victimized, brutalized, oppressed in other countries, and they are coming to the U.S. for asylum. They're following the legal processes, and y'all are snatching them up at their court appointments. But you want us to prioritize the feelings of those men. Do you know whose feelings I care about right now? Do you know where my compassion is going right now? It's to the folks in our communities all across this country that ICE is terrorizing. It's to the folks who are just trying to live their lives and now live in fear. They're afraid to go to their jobs. They're afraid to go to their court appointments. They're afraid to drive to the grocery store. There was a mother back in May who had a baby, and they took her right after she had her baby and left her baby in the hospital. There are women in my community who are afraid to go to the hospital to give birth because they're afraid that ICE is waiting for them there. One of the first things that the Trump regime did was rescind an order that prevented ICE from raiding schools, hospitals, and churches. If that doesn't indicate the inhumanity of what y'all are doing, then maybe this will.
Tengo trabajo, no tengo nada. Porque por el presidente de Donald Trump que está tirando todos los inmigrantes todo para afuera. ¿Qué culpa tenemos nosotros?
¿Qué tiempo estás sin trabajo?
Yo tengo 6 meses sin trabajo.
¿Y cómo estás pagando los biles?
Yo estoy viviendo en la calle, vivo en la calle. Yo sé trabajar, yo lo sé trimear todos estos árboles. a tus hermanitos a ver si lo pueden hacer. Yo sé que no lo pueden hacer. Mira esta pobre muchacha.
These are folks who have come here wanting a better life for themselves and for their children. They're hardworking folks. They have jobs. Many of them have lost them because they're afraid to show up to work because they know ICE will be there. They want to work. They want to pay their bills. They want to pay their taxes. They want to live peacefully here. We have an incredibly mangled, hopelessly complex immigration system that makes it virtually impossible and take years, sometimes decades, for people to become documented. Asylum seekers have to enter the country and start the asylum process. It takes people years and years and years to get their green cards. When I hear Republicans saying, well, if they didn't want this to happen to them, they should have just entered this country legally, that tells me you know nothing about immigration in this country, how incredibly broken our immigration system is. If you're worried about people coming here legally, then you should be an advocate for comprehensive immigration reform. You should be an advocate for fixing our immigration system. Not for this, not for the cruelty, the chaos, the illegality of what ICE is doing. You should be an advocate for reforming our immigration system, not for letting Donald Trump and Stephen Miller terrorize our immigrant neighbors and peel back, strip away, one by one, our constitutional rights and protections. I've said it before and I'll say it again. I understand that ICE agents are human beings. I understand the banality of evil. I understand that a lot of these folks are doing what they're doing now because they were promised a $42,000 Christmas bonus if they work for ICE for so long. I understand that they are mercenaries. They are willing to be hired thugs. They're willing to sell their souls and be part of the American Gestapo for money. And I know that their day of accountability will come. They will have to answer for what they're doing now. I see their humanity. I understand it, but don't ask me to have empathy for them. Don't ask me to feel bad for them when people rightly criticize what they're doing. Sure, they're people with families. How can you look your children in the eyes? How can you sleep at night? How does your conscience not prick you endlessly? How are you not overwhelmed, taken to your knees by your guilt and shame? How do you look yourself in the mirror at all? I understand a lot of these ICE dudes are probably insurrectionists. They're probably oath keepers. They're probably Proud Boys. But not all of them. In fact, we've seen a lot in the footage from California that a lot of these folks are people of color. A lot of these folks are Latino themselves. We are a nation of immigrants. 97% of Americans are immigrants or are the children and descendants of immigrants. Immigrants are not a threat to us. They are us. Right? Emma Lazarus's poem, The New Colossus, on the front of the Statue of Liberty says, give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses yearning to breathe free. It says, send these, the homeless, the tempest tossed to me. I understand that our country has a long history of vilifying whatever the next wave of immigrants is to come through. I understand that what Donald Trump and Stephen Miller are doing now is attempting an ethnic cleansing for profit. They're folding their horrible authoritarian plans in with a grift, sending billions of taxpayer dollars into private corporations and into the bank accounts of ICE agents who are terrorizing immigrants. But who are we as Americans? Where are our values? How have we forgotten where we have come from? So no, I don't have sympathy for ICE agents. All of my sympathy, all of my compassion, all of my activism is for our immigrants. And I hope every ICE agent who is saying, don't make fun of me, don't say mean things about me, don't demand that I show my face, I have a family, I have feelings. I hope you think about the fact that the immigrants that you are terrorizing, they also have families. You are rounding up people's wives and children. You are rounding up husbands, and their kids come home from school and find that their dad is gone. They have no idea where he is. They may never see him again. I hope you know that families live in fear of you every day. Maybe you get a little rush from that. Maybe you are truly evil people. Maybe you just have no problem selling other human beings out for a paycheck. I'm sure that the Gestapo in 1930s Germany thought that they were also just doing their job for a paycheck. As Anne Frank said, terrible things are happening outside. Poor, helpless people are being dragged from their homes. Families are torn apart. Men, women, and children are separated. Children come home from school to find that their parents have disappeared. And ICE is doing the same thing right